السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. We are on hadith number 26 of Sahih Bukhari. I will read the hadith again and go straight to its commentary. حدثنا أحمد بن يونس وموسى بن إسماعيل قال حدثنا إبراهيم بن سعد قال حدثنا ابن شهاب عن سعيد بن المسيب عن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه. It was Hadrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu who narrated this hadith. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سئل, that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, Ayyul amali afdal, which action is the best? Faqala, he responded, Imanun billahi wa rasulihi, faith, to believe in Allah and His Prophet. Qila thumma madha, then it was asked, thereafter what? Qala, al jihad fi sabilillah, striving in the way of Allah the Almighty, or jihad in the way of Allah the Almighty. Qila thumma madha, he was asked, then what follows? Qala hajjum mabrur, he said, hajj mabrur. That is a hajj filled with all virtuous attributes of hajj. So the commentary goes as follows. Ajul amale afdol, which action is the best? इस बाब के मातहत जिस हदीस को पेश किया गया है उससे भी इसी इस्तिलाल की तायीद होती है. That is, it is also the same point that we've been mentioning in relation to this chapter that continues in this hadith as well. यानी जब आ हदस सल्लम से ये पूछा गया कि कौन सा अमल अफजल है, that is when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked which action is the best, तो आपने जवाब दिया कि अल्लाह और रसूल पर ईमान लाना. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, to believe in Allah and His Prophet. गोया आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने ईमान को अमल करार दिया है. So the point here is that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has designated faith, that is iman, as amal, as an action, as a deed. बेवजह इस तलाजुम के जो दोनों के दरमियान है, in the focus of the relationship, the unity, the union between these two contexts, that is faith and action. عدة من أهل العلم से मरद हजरत अनस बिन मालिक, हजरत Abdullah bin Umar or Mujahid वगैरह हैं. So when Hadrat Imam Bukhari pointed to this, saying that a number of people of knowledge had the same opinion, he is referring to Hadrat Anas bin Malik, Hadrat Abdullah bin Umar and Mujahid and the likes. الذين جعلوا القرآن عيدين فوربك لنسألنهم أجمعين أما كانوا يعملون. That is another verse that was quoted earlier. So the translation goes, वो लोग जिन्होंने कुरान को तकरीर कर दिया, that is, those who had made the Quran in piecemeal, तेरे रब ही की कसम है कि हम जरूर उन सब से कोशिश करेंगे. With by the call or swearing by your Lord, we shall definitely ask each and every one of them उन अमल के मुतालिक जो करते थे, in relation to the actions that they were performing. इसके बाद शिरक और मुशरिकों का जिक्र करके फरमाया. Thereafter, after mentioning the idolatry and the idolaters. Allah says, فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ, they shall soon know. Sorry, فَسَوْفَ يَعْمَلُونَ, they shall keep on working towards it. Une ankori pata la jaiga. It should be فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. Maybe a typographical error. That is, they shall soon know. Ise maskura bala ulama ne istilaki yake amma ya'malun se murad mushrikana af'al hai. As such, those people of knowledge that we are referring to, that's Hadrat Anas bin Malik, Hadrat Abdullah bin Umar, and the likes, Mujahid and the likes, they are referring to this, the context they are able to derive from this particular idea is that amma yamalun, that is stated in relation to what their actions are, that is the idolatry that they were performing, that is what the point was referring to. और ये कि उनसे kalima tawhid ke muta'alliq pucha jayega. As such, they will be required, they will be asked over the proclamation of the oneness of Allah the Almighty. So, what had kept them aback, and what was the point of the failure they had in understanding, in realizing the oneness of Allah the Almighty, for which they chose idolatry? Go, is ayat say, ye istidlal dur ka hai, even though it is a far off point to derive from this particular verse. मगर इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने इस ख्याल का भी जिक्र कर दिया है कि ता उन उलमा का नुक्ता नज़र भी ज़िम्न मालूम हो जाए. But Imam Bukhari had mentioned it so that the idea of those reputable scholars can be recognized as well. That their idea can be inclusive in the point he was making for people to understand. जो ईमान के मफहूम को इतने वसअत देते हैं कि इस किस्म की आयतें में भी अमल से मुराद ईमान ही लेते हैं. That is, those scholars are who have the idea that faith is also an action. So their points can be derived from this particular these verses of the Holy Quran. और इसमें क्या शक है कि एक एतबार से ये भी सही है कि ईमान ही सारे का सारा अमल है. And why would it be wrong when when the totality of faith is also dependent on action? So we can say that faith can be regarded as an all-round ideology of each and every action that is performed in the right sense. यानी ईमान के बगैर अमल बेमाने शे है. That is, without faith, the action is also a meaningless action. The action will also remain meaningless. इंसान के तमाम अमल का किबला रुख ईमान बिल्ला और ईमान बिर रसूल होना चाहिए. The complete focus of all action of mankind should be directed towards believing in Allah and the Prophet of sorry, believing in Allah and the Prophet of Allah. इसीलिए हज़रत ने उसको सबसे अफजल करार दिया है. And that is why the Holy Prophet ﷺ had made it the best of all action, had put it on the highest rank. क्योंकि इस्लाम की रूह से अमल सारे के सारे अल्लाह ताला की रज़ा के लिए और उसकी मशीयत के मतहत होने चाहिए जो रसूलों के ज़रिए से ज़ाहिर होती है. Because in the concept of Islam, all actions must be to win the pleasure of Allah the Almighty, to go by the will of Allah the Almighty. And this comes as a result of what we are able to learn from the prophets of Allah the Almighty. Then we have the content, لِمِثْلِ هَذَا فَلْيَعْمَلِ الْعَامِلُونَ. In the like of this, let those who are acting keep their action. यानी उस कामयाबी के लिए अमल करने वालों को अमल करने चाहिए. That is, the people who are working for towards the path of success should keep on working towards it. यहाँ अमल को न के महज ईमान को जरिए नजात और कामयाबी कर दिया गया है. In this verse of the Holy Quran, it is not only the faith that is pointed out as the uh, way to success, but the action is also linked out. Jihad fi sabilillah. That is the next thing the Holy Prophet ﷺ mentioned as priority. Jihad fi sabilillah से हर वो कोशिश मुराद है जो अल्लाह ताला की राह में की जाए. Jihad fi sabilillah is referring to all actions that are performed in the way of Allah the Almighty. All efforts that are made in the way of Allah the Almighty is regarded as jihad fi sabilillah. Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam ने सबसे अफजल काम के मुतालिक सवाल करने वाले को कभी ये जवाब दिया कि बर वक्त नमाज पढ़ना अफजल है. Those people who ask the Holy Prophet sallam, in response, at times they get the answer that to observe salat on time is the best action. Or uske bad walidain say husn suluk karna. Thereafter, it will say that being virtuous, acting righteously towards the parents is the next in line of action. Or pir uske bad jihad, then jihad, that is striving the way of Allah. Or kabi ye jawab diya ke Islam में बेहतर अमल खाना खिलाना है. At times, the Holy Prophet ﷺ will give the response that the best action in Islam is to feed others, और हर एक के लिए सलामती की दुआ करना है, and observing the prayer of peace for each and every one. और कभी फरमाया, at times or in another place, he also said, लोगों को अपने जुबान और हाथ से सलामती में रखना, that is keeping people safe through your hand, by your hand and by your tongue. अबू बकर मोहम्मद बिन अली शासी ने इस इख्तिलाफ की ये तवजीह की है कि ये अफजलियत निस्बती अम्र है. So Abu Bakr Muhammad bin Ali Shasi had the opinion explained the differences between these responses from the Holy Prophet ﷺ, that they all came on different contexts. और ख़ास हालात और ख़ास लोगों को मलहूज़ रखकर आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने मौका और माहौल मुताबिक ये जवाब दिए हैं. Therefore, considering the situation and the individual, the Holy Prophet सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम then will give an answer that goes in line with the situation of that particular individual. जिसमें हुकूकुल वालिदैन देखा उसको उनसे हुस्न सुलूक का हुक्म दिया. Whenever he observes that someone is not dutiful to the parents, then he gives him the admonition of being virtuous and dutiful to the parents. जिन अमल का ताल्लुक बनीना इंसान की बहबूदी और इसलाह से है. In relation to actions that are meant for the goodness and reformation of mankind, उनमें से जिहाद को अफजल करार दिया है. He had made jihad, that is striving in the way of Allah the Almighty, as the best of all. और जिनका ताल्लुक अपने नफ्स से है, but whose situation is only related to uh, its own individual sense, or when the response is to go for an individual self, then उनमें हज को अफजल करार दिया है. He made Hajj the best of all actions for such individuals. وعلى هذا القياس, and according to Hadrat Maulana Zain al-Abidin, he also go by this particular opinion, this particular qiyas, this judgment of uh, Abu Bakr Muhammad bin Ali Shasi, and by quoting Umdatul Qari, it shows that Alama Aini is also of this specific opinion. Now, chapter 19 of the Book of Faith, Kitab al-Iman. إذا لم يكن الإسلام على الحقيقة, when someone's religion, when someone's Islam is not in its true content or true context, is not in its reality, in its real form. وكان على الاستلام أو الخوف من القتل لقوله تعالى. So the fate of such a person might be that the person is being subdued or submissive by force, or he fears being killed over the word of Allah. قالت الأعراب آمنا. So that is the point that Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi want us to note, that Allah the Almighty says the people, the Bedouins or the village Arabs also proclaim that they believe. Kul lam tu'minu, say to them, you haven't believed. Walakin kulu aslamna, but say we have submitted or we have accepted Islam. Yeah, Surah Hujurat verse 15. فَإِذَا كَانَ عَلَى الْحَقِيقَةِ, but when the faith is on its real form, فَهُوَ عَلَى قَوْلِهِ جَلَّ ذِكْرُهُ, then the statement will be, that faith will be in line with the statement of Allah Jalla Shanuhu, that inna dina inda Allahil Islam. Without any doubt, the religion that is acceptable in the sight of Allah the Almighty is Islam. حدثنا أبو اليماني قال أخبرنا شعيب عن الزهري قال أخبرنا عامر بن سعد بن أبي وقاص عن سعد رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعطى رهطا وسعدا sorry, it was that Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas who related that the Holy Prophet sallam أعطى رهطا, he gave an amount. وسعد جالس, while Sa'd was seated. فترك رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رجلا, then while giving the people who were seated, while giving them the amounts, he omitted an individual. وهو أعجبهم إلي, and he is the one that is more amazing, or that is more beloved to me among them in my sight. Fakultu, then that is Rasad saying, then I said, Ya Rasulallah, O Prophet of Allah, Malaka Anfulanin, what is the issue with in relation to this individual? For Allah, inni la arahu mu'minan. By Allah, I see him to be a believer. Faqala aw Musliman. And he said, then he responded, or being a Muslim, fasakatu, then I kept silent. Fasakatu qalilan, I kept silent for a while. Thumma galabani ma a'lamu minhu, then what I knew of him overtook me. Fa'udtu lima qalati, then I returned to what I have said. Fakultu malaka an fulanin, what is the issue you have with this particular individual, that particular individual? For Allahi inni la arahu mu'minan, by Allah, I know him, I see him to be a believer. Faqala aw Musliman, then the Prophet ﷺ responded, all you mean is a Muslim? Fasakatu qalilan, then I kept silent for a while. Thumma galabani ma a'lamu minhu, then what I know of him still overtook my mind. Fa'udtu lima qalati, then I returned back to my earlier statement. Wa'ada Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Holy Prophet sallam returned. Thumma qala, and he said, Ya Sa'du, O Sa'd, inni la'utiya rajula wa ghayruhu ahabbu ilayya minhu. I am going to give, I will definitely give the individual, while others are more beloved to me than him. Khoshyata an yakubbuhu Allahu finnar, out of the fear that Allah the Almighty should not cast him into hell. Warawahu Yunus wa Salih wa Ma'mar. Yunus, Salih, and Ma'mar also related this hadith. Wabnu Akhi az-Zuhrish, Ani Zuhrish, and the nephew of Zuhrish also narrated it from Zuhrish. This line, Fasakatu Qalilan, there is a note underneath to for us, which is to indicate that it is not all books of ahadith that has that particular, all version of Sahih Bukhari that has this particular statement, but it is in line with what is in the version that that was used in Fathul Bari, the one that was Matbu Bulak ke mutabik, and तर्जुमा उसके मुताबिक है. Imam Adrat Zain al-Abidin was indicating to us that he had taken the translation in line with what was quoted in Fatul Bari, having this particular statement in the middle, Fasakat Kolilan, but some versions of Sahih Bukhari are not having them. Are not having that statement. Is bab में इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने कुरान मजीद की आयतों की बिना पर लफ्ज़ इस्लाम के दो मुख्तलिफ मफ़हूमों की वजाहत की है. For in this chapter, Imam Bukhari had chosen two different verses of the Holy Quran to give different meaning of Islam. एक तो ज़ाहिरी फरमाबरदारी और दूसरी हकीकी फरमाबरदारी जो अल्लाह ताला के हुजूर मकबूल है. One is an apparent submission and the other is the real submission which is acceptable in the sight of Allah the Almighty. और उन आयतों से एक बारीक इस्तिदलाल किया है कि ईमान का ताल्लुक इस हकीकी इस्लाम से है जो इस आयत का मकसूद है. And by that, he brought out a salient point to indicate that Iman, faith, is only in connection to the real form of Islam, the one mentioned in the verse, in a dinner in the law Islam. Certainly, the only religion that is acceptable in the sight of Allah the Almighty is Islam. Mehez Zubani Ikrar ke sat nahi. It is not only on a verbal proclamation. इस्लाम भी वही मोतबर है जिसके साथ खालिस मुसफ़ा ईमान हो. What will be considered to be Islam is the one that has a pure faith in it. और ईमान भी वही मोतबर है जिसके साथ हकीकी फरमाबरदारी है. And what will be considered as the true faith is the one that has true submission. यह मज़मूम है उन आयत का जिनकी तरफ इमाम बुखारी ने इशारा किया है. That is the content of the verses that Imam Bukhari had pointed out. उन आयतों से मालूम होता है कि जो ताबीदारी ज़ाहिर में हो और दिल से न हो वो अल्लाह ताला के हाँ मकबूल नहीं. From those verses of the Holy Quran, it became apparent that the followership that is only apparent but not sincere to the heart will not be acceptable in the sight of Allah. Mu'minan or Musliman, being a believer or being a Muslim. इमाम बुखारी रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि इस बाब में जो हदीस लाई है उससे उन्होंने ईमान और इस्लाम के दरमियान असल फ़र्क को वाज़ेह किया है. In relation to the hadith that Imam Bukhari had brought in this particular chapter, he had pointed out the striking difference between faith, that is Iman, and Islam, meaning proclaiming to be a Muslim. Yani Iman batini kefiyat ka nam hai. That is to indicate that Iman, faith, faith is this internal state of an individual. Jabke Islam ka ta'alluq zahir se hai, while the open or the apparent state of the individual has connection with Islam. इसलिए it's regarded as Islam. इसलिए हज़रत सल्लम ने अदब सिखलाया है कि किसी के मुतालिक अपनी राय का इजहार करने में एहतियात से काम लेना चाहिए. That is why the Holy Prophet ﷺ had taught us, he gave us the lesson that we should be very careful while presenting our view in relation to an individual. Andronic ka ilm yakini Allah Ta'ala hi ko hai. It is only Allah the Almighty who has the full knowledge of the inner state of an individual. जिस sahabi को आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने देना मुनासिब न समझा, the companion that the Holy Wasallam considered it not appropriate to give him, वो हजरत जुआइल bin Saraka, हजरत जुआइल रदियल्लाहु anhu bin Suraka, Mukhlis Muhajir थे. It was Hazrat Ju'ail bin Suraka, who was also a devoted muhajir. Hazrat Salam bi unse mahabbat rakte hain. The Holy Prophet Salam also loves him so much, also loves him. Magar ba wujud iske आप सल्लल्लाहु ने हजरत साद रजी अल्लाह ताला अन्हु के बार बार जोर देने पर उन्हें ये अदब सिखलाया. But by the Holy Prophet Salam insisting, correcting Hadrat Saad over his persistence, gave us this particular lesson. और इस फ़र्क को मलहूज रखने की तालीम दी, and he gave us the teaching to be able that we should keep this difference in mind, जो दर हकीकत ईमान और इस्लाम के दरमियान है. That is the difference that comes in between iman and Islam, faith and the religion, the proclamation of religion of Islam. ज़ाहिर की बिना पर हम किसी के मुतालिक इस कदर फतवा दे सकते हैं जहाँ तक के ज़ाहिर का ताल्लुक है. We are only able to give our declaration on an individual to the extent of what is apparent of that individual. ज़ाहिरी इकरार की बिना पर किसी के हकीकी ईमान के मुतालिक फैसला नहीं कर सकते. By the apparent look, or by what is apparent from an individual, we cannot make decision on what is its inner state, what is his faith. We cannot present a judgment of someone's faith from its apparent or outward state. This may be farq marja'iyya ka rad hai. Sorry, firqa marja'iyya ka rad hai. This also contains a refutation of the marja'iyya sect. जो ये कहते हैं कि सिर्फ जुबान के इकरार से एक शख्स न सिर्फ मोमिन बल्कि जन्नती भी होता है. They have the opinion that just by the proclamation of the mouth, just by verbal proclamation, the person is not just only a believer, but also is also deserving of paradise. However, they'll say into contract raktahu ya na raktahu. Either he bears that particular faith in his heart or he doesn't. Amal kiya ho ya na kiya ho. Either he works towards it or he didn't. गोया उनके नज़दीक सिर्फ कलमा शहादत जन्नत में जाने के लिए काफ़ी है. It now appears that in their own opinion, just by the verbal proclamation of the kalima shahada, it is enough for an individual to be in paradise. إني لأعطي الرجل وغيره أحب إلي منه. I shall definitely give the man, while others who are those who are different from him are more beloved to me than him. خشية أن يكبه الله, lest Allah the Almighty cast him aside, in fear that Allah the Almighty might not cast him aside. इस वाकया से मालूम होता है कि रसूलुल्लाह ने कमजोर लोगों का भी ख्याल रखने की तालीम दी. From this particular idea, we understood that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also keeping in mind the weak ones. ता ऐसा ना हो कि वो अपने कमजोरी की वजह से ठोकर खाएं, so that they will not fall, they will not stumble out of their weaknesses. एक कमजोर पौधा जिस निगरानी का मोहताज होता है, बड़ा दरख्त इस कदर मोहताज नहीं होता. The care that is needed for a weak plant is not the same that is needed for a big plant. Meaning, a robust plant would not need that tenderness, that full-time care like a weak plant would need. सल्लम ने लोगों के ईमान को ठोकर से बचाने के लिए जरा 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 सी बात का ख्याल रखा है. Therefore, in order to save people from stumbling in faith, the Holy Prophet ﷺ would even pay attention to petty ideas. इस अमल में बाज नादान लोग बहुत गलत रवैया इख्तियार करते हैं. On this affair, some ignorant folks would have a wrong perception. न सिर्फ ये कि ठोकर खाने वाले इंसान को हर ऐसे अमल से बचाए रखें जो ठोकर का मूजिब होता है. It is not that the person who could stumble will be safe from everything that could make him stumble. वो खुद उसके ठोकर का बाइस बन जाते हैं. They themselves are such that they become the reason for their weakness for which they are about to stumble. और बजाय मुशफ़िक़ाना रवैया इख्तियार करने के उन कमज़ोरों के ईमान पर अलल ऐलान हमला करते हैं. Now, instead of they themselves being quiet, kind enough, taking a cool approach for themselves and for others. On the contrary, they always want to make a proclamation against others' faith. Or इस तरह उनको और धोखा देते हैं. As such, they get to the state of even deceiving themselves more. An फदात होना से इस अमलों में इस कदर एहतियात से काम लेते थे कि दूसरे के सामने किसी के ईमान की खास तौर पर तारीफ करने से भी मना फरमाते. The Holy Prophet ﷺ was so careful that he wouldn't reveal people's faith in the sight of others. More importantly, when it comes to a praiseworthy aspect, meaning he wouldn't give the praiseworthy aspect of someone's faith such that the person is not affected by that praise. न सिर्फ इसलिए कि बस वक्त मुंह पर तारीफ करना उस शख्स के लिए नुकसान का मुजिब होता है. It is not only because by making a verbal praise of that individual, that individual may fall short afterwards. जिसकी तारीफ की जाती है, the one that is being praised might fall short of it afterwards. बल्कि इस एक किस्म के मुकाबला से बस वक्त गोया दूसरे के ईमान और रवैया पर भी हमला होता है. The other side of it is why people try to compare their own faith to the faith of that individual as well. It now appears as a kind of attack on their own faith, which can easily cause them to stumble as well. आपने इस एक वाकया में चार सबक सिखलाए हैं. So Imam Bukhari or the Holy Prophet ﷺ had given us 4 lessons from this single incident, and that is what Imam Bukhari was trying to bring out for us. The first one, Islam or Iman me farak, is the difference between Islam and faith, Iman. The second one, Alfaz ka bar mahal istilma kalna, using words or statements in the appropriate situation. That's the second lesson. The third lesson is مؤلفة القلوب ka khiyal rakna, having a caring for those who might have their heart wandering, meaning the heart is not stable on faith yet. So you need to care for them as well. And the fourth one is किसी की बेसोचे समझे ऐसे तौर से तारीफ न करना कि दूसरों के ईमान या रवैया पर हमला हो. You shouldn't praise someone unnecessarily in the presence of others to the point that it will not become an attack on the faith of others. हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की जिंदगी का एक एक वाकया हिकमत और इस्लाह का खजाना है. Each and every incident in the lifetime of the Holy Prophet ﷺ are store of wisdom and system of reformation. इसकी मिसालें आइंदा बहुत सी आएगी. We shall see many of these examples in future, in subsequent ahadith. Bab number 20, this chapter 20 of Kitab al-Iman, the book of faith. Ifsha'us salam min al-Islam. Spreading salam, that is assalamu alaikum, is also part of Islam. وقال عمار, and Ammar said, ثلاث من جمعهن فقد جمع الإيمان. There are three things. Whosoever have the three of them, whosoever is able to combine the three of them within himself, has combined faith within himself. Al-insaf min nafsik, being just to your own self. Wa badlu salami lil alam, and spreading a salam to the world. Well, in fact, min al iqtar, and spending out of destitute, out of poverty. Hadith number 28. حدثنا قتيبة قال حدثنا الليث عن يزيد بن أبي حبيب عن أبي الخير عن عبد الله بن عمرو وأن رجلا سأل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. This hadith is from Hadrat Abdullah bin Amr, that a man asked the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Ayyul Islam khair, which Islam is the best. Qala, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, Tut'imu ta'ama, that you feed others, wa taqra'u salam, and you proclaim assalamu alaikum ala man arafta wa man lam ta'rif, on each and every one you know and the ones you don't even know as well. Al-insaf min nafsik, being just to your own self. अपने नफ्स से इंसाफ करने के एक माने ये है कि अपने नफ्स का वो हक अदा करना जो खाने पीने, पहने वगैरह ज़रूरी उमूर के साथ ताल्लुक़ रखता है. One meaning of being just to oneself is fulfilling the needs of that individual self in relation to food, feeding, drinking, putting on clothes, and the likes. Usko bila wajah taklif me na dalna chahiye. You don't need to put yourself in unnecessary pain, unnecessary pleasure in relation to those rights. दूसरे ये कि अपने हुकूक की hudud के अंदर रहना. The second thing is to put your own rights within its limits. इंसान जो उमूमन दूसरों के मामला में तो इंसाफ करता है, man that is very well aware, or is that usually try to act in a just way when it comes to other people's affairs. लेकिन जब अपने मामला आ जाए तो इंसाफ बोल जाता है. But whenever it comes to their own personal self, their own personal issues, they forget the dictate of justice. इसलिए फरमाया कि ईमान ये है कि इंसान अपने नफ्स से दूसरे का हक दिलाए. Therefore, it is stated that faith requires you to give others their rights, even against your own self. सलामती उस वक्त मफकूद होती है जब हम में से कोई अपने हुकूक से आगे बढ़ने लगता है. The moment that peace is disrupted anywhere is when an individual wants to go beyond the level of his rights. अगर हम अपने हुकूक पर कौने रहें, if we are satisfied with our own rights, with the limit of our own rights, all those ke hukuk par hat na dale, and we do not put our hand in the rights of others to afford the bashar ke darmiyan aman rahe, then there will be peace and harmony within humanity. तीसरे ये माने है कि अपने वाजिबात और जिम्मेदारियों को समझकर अदा करे. The third meaning is for you to understand your roles and responsibilities and you fulfill them. दूसरों से जो बात अपने लिए चाहता है, what you want for yourself from others, दूसरों के लिए भी अपने नफ्स से उसका मुतालिबा करे. Then demand that particular right from yourself in relation to others as well. गरज हर माने में ये तालीम हकीकी सलामती का मुजिब है. Therefore, in all contexts, this teaching leads to peace. This teaching brings about peace. Badr salam lil alam, spreading assalamu alaikum for the entirety of the world. Badr salam lil alam से मुराद ये है कि बिगर अपनी ذات पात और कौमियत की तमीज़ कि सबके लिए सलामती का मूजिब और सलामती का ख्वाहा हो. That is, the meaning of this particular statement is regardless of race, regardless of your connection with anyone, you should spread salam and should wish for the peace of each and everyone in the world. ये उन मकारिम अखलाक की एक मिसाल है. This is an example of those virtuous deeds जिसके तालीम हज़रत ने बनी नौ इंसान को दी, that the Holy Prophet ﷺ gave to humanity. This is one of the virtuous deeds that the Holy Prophet ﷺ taught humanity. Al-infaq min al-iqtar, spending out of destitute, spending in the state of poverty. Yani tangi ki halat me kharaj karna, that is, you should spend when you are in difficulty. आपने उन अल्फाज में सलामती का मफहूम पूरे तौर पर वाज़े फरमा दिया है. He had used this to clarify all the meanings that are connected to being at peace. बदल सलाम का एक मफहूम सल्बी एतबार से भी हो सकता है. Spreading of salam could also have a negative meaning in one way. यानी इंसान अपहज की तरह बैठ जाए, किसी को जरर न दे. So it's yani one should not sit like an handicap in a particular location and do not inflict any pain on anyone. So that idea which the person think okay is cool with everyone could also be negative. Like in Salam ki ye murad nahi, but this is not the intention of the Holy Prophet Sallam. बल्कि ये है कि तंग दस्त होकर बुकों को दे और दकियारों के दुख दूर करके उन्हें सलामती बख्शे. That is, even when you yourself you are facing destitute, still work in order to feed those who are in hunger, those who are dejected, they are in pain, remove their pain. By that, you have bestowed peace on them. याद रहे कि ये इस्लाम का एक आम मफहूम है. Do remember that this is a general meaning of the word Islam. This is also a general meaning of Islam. और ये मकारिम अखलाक में इस्लामी तालीम का पहला जीना है. And this particular virtuous action is just the beginning, the rudimentary state, or the earliest beauty, the very first beauty of Islam. Kamal Nehi, it is not the peak of it, it's not the excellence of it. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi ने बाब के उनवान में बज़ल सलाम लिल आलम कहकर तक़रा उस सलाम अला मन अरफ्ता व मन लम तारिफ की मज़ीद तशरीह की कर दी है. After Imam Bukhari had titled the chapter Bazl Salam lil Alam, that is spreading peace for the entire world, then he made the statement Taqra'u salam ala man arafta wa man lam ta'rif, that you should proclaim peace for each and everyone you know and those who you do not know, as a further explanation of the chapter, of the title of the chapter. और हजरत अम्मार रदियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु बिन यासिर के जो अल्फाज नकल किए गए हैं, ये भी एक मुस्तरद मरफू hadith nabawi के अल्फाज हैं. Now, the statement that was quoted from Hadrat Ammar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Hadrat Ammar bin Yasir radiallahu ta'ala anhu, is also a particular hadith that is actually from the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. जो हजरत अमर बिन यासिर सहाबी ने हजरत सल्लम से रिवायत किए हैं. This statement was narrated by Hadrat Ammar bin Yasir from the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. इस बाब में इमाम बुखारी ने इस्लाम का एक तीसरा मफहूम बयान किया है. Okay, before I state this, I just like to remind us of the fact that Imam Bukhari had presented that hadith, I mean that statement, in relation to Ammar bin Yasir radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and did not number it as a specific hadith in its book. That could possibly be under the conditions of riwayat of that Imam Bukhari always choose. I always say that whenever Imam Bukhari considers a particular hadith to be authentic, but the riwayat do not meet the standard which he had set, then he will quote that particular hadith, but will not give it a number in his own book. So he will quote it as the chapter title of the as the title of the chapter he is dealing with, or he brings it as a statement of one of the companions of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu who had narrated it. And this is a similar thing that has happened here. Now, the third teaching that Imam Bukhari brought out through this particular hadith is मुतलक सलामती का मुजिब होना अपने लिए और घर के लिए. That is, the target of what brings peace should be in context in relation to yourself as well as in relation to others. Chapter 21 of Kitabul Iman is titled Kufronul Ashir, that is, not being grateful to the husband. وكفر دون كفر فيه وكفر دون كفر فيه. This means a disbelief that does not have disbelief in it. Kufrun duna kufrin fihi, a disbelief that does not have disbelief in it. And Abi Sa'id al-Khudri and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is Abu Sa'id Khudri who narrated this from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you can see that this Imam Bukhari considered it to be a valid statement, an authentic hadith, but the chain of narration, the chain of the riwayat does not meet the standard that Imam Bukhari always use. I mean, at set. Therefore, it is not given a number and is not presented as an independent hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Hadith number 29. حدثنا عبد الله بن مسلمة عن مالك عن زيد بن أسلم عن عطاء بن يسار عن ابن عباس رضي الله تعالى عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. It was Hadrat ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu who narrated this hadith, saying that the Holy Prophet sallam said, Uritu naro, I was shown hell, فَإِذَا أَكْثَرُ أَهْلِهَا النِّسَاء, and I was shown fire, and most people therein were females. Yakfurna, they are ungrateful. Qila, ayakfurna billahi, yakfurna, they are disbelievers. Qila, he was asked, ayakfurna billahi, is it that they are ungrateful or they disbelieve in Allah? Qala, the Holy Salam responded, yakfurna al-ashir, they are ungrateful to the husbands. Wa yakfurna al-ihsan, and they are ungrateful to the goodness done to them. Law ahsanta ila ihdahunna, if you do good to one of them, ad-dahr, for a full year, thumma ra'at minka shay'an, then she sees something that displeases her from you, just an error. Qalat, she will say, Ma ra'aytu minka khayran qattun, I've never seen any goodness in you. Okay, I think we can complete this before going. Kufrun duna kufrin, disbelief without disbelief. जिस तरह गुज़श्ता हवाला जात में इमाम मौसूफ रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने इस्लाम के मुख्तलिफ मफहूम बयान किए, इसी तरह इस बाब में बेकुफ्र के मुख्तलिफ मफहूम बयान किए हैं. The way Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi had given different analysis and different meaning of faith, iman, the same way he had given different meaning and analysis of disbelief in this particular chapter. और ये बतलाया है कि इसके भी मदारिज होते हैं. And he mentioned to us through this hadith that through this chapter that the disbelief also has its own stages, its own levels. कुफ्र के माने रिवायत नंबर 21 की तशरीह में मुलाहिजा हो. For the meaning of disbelief, one can check the explanation of the hadith number 21. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi ने जिस hadith को यहाँ चुना है, the hadith Imam Bukhari are chosen in this particular chapter, उसमें कुफ्र के माने अल्लाह ताला के इनकार के अलावा ना शुक्रगुजारी भी किए गए हैं. It gives the meaning of the word kufur other than disbelieving in Allah. So by this, he indicated that not being grateful is also a type of kufur. Kufrun duna kufrin के कार ये बतलाया है कि कुफ्र जिस नौइयत का भी हो उसके मरातिब होते हैं. By saying kufrun duna kufrin, disbelief without disbelief, indicates that whatever type of disbelief that is in context, they also have their level. Kufrun billahi, Allah Ta'ala ka inkar bhi ho sakta hai. Being rejecting Allah the Almighty could be regarded as kufr billahi. इसके बस सिफात का इनकार भी हो सकता है. It could also be just by rejecting some of the attributes of Allah, और उसके अहकाम की नफरमानी भी हो सकती है. And it could also be rejecting being disobedient to some of his commandments. हर एक बद एतकादी और नफरमानी अपने अंदर कुफ्र का शाइबा रखती है. Each and every wrong belief and disobedience has a mark of disbelief therein. जैसा कि हर अच्छे इंतकाद और हर इताअत के अंदर ईमान की झलक होती है. Just like there is always a spark of faith in each and every right belief and obedience. और कुफ्र के छोटा बड़ा होने के ये मायने नहीं कि वो सजा का मुस्तहिक नहीं. And for a disbelief being small or being huge does not mean that the person would not be worthy or will not be due for punishment. यही ना शुक्रगुजारी एक ऐसा कुफ्र है कि जिसकी वजह से औरतें जहन्नम में है. And it is out of this similar points, that is just by being ungrateful, that fire is mentioned in relation to women. रआयतों के अल्फाज से मालूम होता है कि ये एक कश्फ या ख्वाब का नज़ारा है. By the word रआयतु, it indicates that this came as a vision or a dream जो सल्लम को दिखलाया गया, that was shown to the Holy Prophet सल्लम. और रोज़मर्रा के वाक़यात और मुशाहिदात इसकी सही ताबीर है. And what happens in each and every day life is the interpretation of that particular vision. Kindly let's get this particular context well, because it is actually the main point in the narration. The day-to-day occurrences is the interpretation of that statement of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the word ro'aitu, which indicates that he saw it as a vision or as a dream. जिस कदर औरतें न शुक्रगुजारी की वजह से बिल उमुम हसरतों और दुखों की आग में है, इस कदर मर्द नहीं. The way that women live within themselves out of the pain of not being grateful, of being ungrateful, the kind of pain they bear within themselves, the kind of fire that lives within them is not the same in relation to men. जो शख्स कौन नहीं, a man that is anyone who is not who is not corny, who is not satisfied, who doesn't have satisfaction, और वो जिसकी नजर उन नेमतों की तरफ नहीं जो उसको हासिल हैं. An individual who does not pay attention to the bounties that he is already blessed with, बल्कि दूसरों की नेमतों को देखकर ललचाता और wow wela karta hai, but he looks at what others are blessed with and he continues to gasp for them, he continues to long after them. वो यकीनन हमेशा अपने दिल में जहन्नम की रखता है. Such an individual had actually put fire within his heart, has put hell in himself. So that is to indicate that the main content of this hadith is the pain which people put within themselves out of not showing contentment to what they have. हाँ वो जो मौजूदा नेमतों पर शुक्रगुजार और कनाअत का सांस लेते हुए मजीद फजल का उम्मीदवार है, वो राहत में है. Whosoever looks at what he is already blessed with and hope for more out of with contentment, such a person will have a free mind. औरत का असल चैन खाविन की शुक्रगुजारी और वफादारी में है. The true peace, the true solace that a woman can derive will be being grateful to the husband and being obedient to the husband. उसके बगैर उसका घर उसका घर बार उसके लिए एक जहन्नम हो जाता है. If a woman does not observe this, meaning is not contented and is not appreciative of what the husband is giving and is not obedient, then such a woman will always have a hell within her house. अहद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने जिस जिस लतीफ के इस नक्श की इस्लाह फरमाई है जो उमूमन उनकी सारी लताफतों को बदमज़गी में तब्दील कर देता है. So the Prophet ﷺ used this statement to correct that salient thing that brings bitterness, that brings pain to all sort of bliss that is supposed to be achieved within the home. इस हदीस से ये भी पता चलता है कि बस कुफर ऐसे भी होते हैं जिसमें एक मुसलमान भी मुब्तला हो जाता है. From this hadith, it is also apparent, it's also known that there are some sort of kufur that even a believer may fall in. باب مذكور में अल्फाज फीही अन अबी सईद अल खुदरी अन नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम जो हैं उनसे इमाम बुखारी अलैहि रहमा की गरज इस हदीस की तरफ इशारा करना है. So by this statement, fihi an Abi Sa'id al-Khudri and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is actually pointing out to a particular narration जो किताब al-Haid babu tark haid as-sawm में मरवी है. That particular hadith is mentioned in the book of al-Haid, that is monthly period, in the chapter of Tarki Haid as-Sawm, a woman on a period, the regulation that allows her to live fasting. Kufru duna kufrin bi hadith nabawi ke hi alfaz hai. The statement belief without disbelief is also a statement in hadith. जो इमाम अहमद बिन हंबल रहमतुल्लाह अलैहि ने किताब ईमान में अता बिन रबाह वगैरह से नकल की है. So Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal narrated this hadith in his book. We've exhausted the time and we've actually gone beyond time. So I wouldn't know if there is anything to add by anyone or any question. Otherwise, in the next 30 seconds, I'll bring the session to an end.
جزاكم الله خيرا.
All right. Barakallah fi. Alhamdulillah, jazakumullah. Now we come to the end of today's session. Inshallah, we'll meet again on Monday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.